Hi, and welcome back for week 6 of Virtual Delta Middle School. If you can believe it, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? 6 weeks this way. Well, this is your ELA 7 virtual edition for Monday, April 27th. So let's get rolling. Today's tasks are concept circles for vocabulary list 24. That's our last vocab list of the year. Hooray, I'm sure that you're happy. We should throw a parade, all that kind of stuff. But don't forget, we do have a vocab test next Friday, so don't get too excited yet. Don't let those just jump right out of your head. Hold on to them, because these are words that you could use your whole life. So hopefully you're letting them sink in and using them in your everyday conversations and language, because again, these are words that you will see on a regular basis throughout your life. Enough about that. The other two things we've got going for today are Reading Plus, and of course, grab a book, spend a few minutes in the pages of that book. All right, so vocab list 24. You ready to break them down? Actually, before we get to that, one thing. So I had several of you let me know through the survey that I put out last Monday that it's taking you a really long time to do your concept circles. So one thing that I did for this week is I put the vocab words on your circles for you. So that's already taken care of for you. And then another thing that I would suggest, and I've mentioned it in a couple of other weeks, but I don't know if maybe it just you didn't catch it or what, but another thing that you could do, rather than making a separate text box for every D, S, or E, just add your label into the text of your definition or your synonym or what have you. If that doesn't make sense to you and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, if you go to the lesson notes for today, I put an example of what that would look like in there for you, okay? It's actually, it actually even gives you a synonym for your first vocabulary word and an example. So, so it would be, for example, like the word culmination is our first word. And so, your definition, so you would just write D dash, the highest point. And then in your next box, S dash, climax. And then you would have to do another synonym because there's only one definition for that word. But your example then would be E dash, graduation, because the culmination of your education is your graduation. So, and hopefully yours will look a little different than the class of 2020s does. Whatever that ends up looking like, but I'm guessing it's not gonna look like the norm. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Again, if it doesn't, check the lesson notes for today, because there's an example of that in print so that you can see what it might look like. All right, so that's the labeling thing, and hopefully that helps you guys and reduces the amount of time that you end up spending on concept circles, so that you can spend that time working on a different class or working on your Reading Plus or reading a book or magazine or something. All right, so our words, let's run through them quickly. All right, word 1, I say you say, culmination. Culmination means the highest point. So that's one definition for culmination. Part of speech there is a noun. We know that because the definition starts with the word the. Connotation is neutral. We're just kind of, it's a culmination. It could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing, it could be just plain neutral. So we're going with neutral for that. And then just a few moments ago, I gave you an example for that if you'd like to use it, or you can come up with something of your own. All right, word 2, ominous. Ominous means threatening. So that's one definition. Our part of speech is an adjective, so ominous describes a situation. You would describe a situation, usually, not usually a person, sometimes, as ominous or threatening. Our connotation there naturally is negative. Something is threatening you, you're not usually excited about it, so that would be a negative connotation. Think of an example of something that fits the bill for that, for your example. Next word, diminutive. Diminutive means tiny, which is interesting because it's a pretty long word. So it's a big word to describe something very small. So, and again, we said describe right there in that explanation, right? So describe, that means we're looking at an adjective. And then our connotation there is neutral. Could go either way, right? And then next on our list, perpetual. Perpetual means going on forever. It is an adjective and it is generally neutral. Okay, so something that is perpetual or feels perpetual to you, maybe you want to use it to describe, quarantine, perhaps, or maybe vocab homework, whatever. Something that is perpetual or that seems to go on forever. All right. Next up, terse. Terse means brief or to the point. So two definitions there, brief and to the point. So you've had one definition for 4 in a row, and then for that 5th one, we give you a 2 definition word. And terse is an adjective. It's something that you would use to describe usually someone, or it could be something. It could be like a reply or a response or something like that. It is an adjective and it is generally negative. Usually if somebody's giving you a terse response, it's usually, you're not happy about it. It's usually a negative thing. Oftentimes just the way we use it, the word itself wouldn't necessarily be negative, but the way we use it is often negative. Though on the other hand, like Ernest Hemingway is an author who is known for being terse. There's not a lot of description in his writing. A lot of you guys would like him because he's just straight to the point and doesn't give you a whole bunch of details or anything like that. So that would be a good example of someone who is terse. All right. Next word. This will sound familiar to you. You've probably heard and or used this word before. Purge. So purge means to get rid of something undesirable. To get rid of something undesirable. So this is our trickiest definition to point to this point. We're going to do 2 definitions here. We're going to do to get rid. That's definition number 1. And then we're going to add a word so that we can use the last 2 words. So we're going to use to get rid as our first definition, and then we're going to add the word eliminate something undesirable. Eliminate something undesirable. That's our second definition. Purge is a verb, and the connotation is, I'm hoping you know this, that usually when we're using that word, it's a negative thing, generally speaking. All right, so think of an example that you could use for the word purge. All right, that gets us halfway through our definition or our words for this week. So let's knock out the second half real quick. First of all, panorama. Panorama means a full view of an area. A full view of an area. So again, we're going to do 2 definitions, and again, we're going to kind of mix it up a little bit to make it work for us, okay? So we've got a full view. That's our first definition. So a full view. And then we're going to do view of area. View of area. Okay, so it's kind of like standing on a mountaintop or an overlook or something like that and being able to view the area, right? That's a panorama, the view of the area that you see there. Okay, so those are our 2 definitions. We've got the part of speech is a noun, and then panorama has a neutral connotation. It's just, it is what it is. It's a panorama. It's nice. It's awesome, I guess. Cool, right? Neutral. Okay, next word. Gregarious. Yeah, gregarious. I know that's a fun one. All right, so it means sociable, fond of the company of others. So we're gonna do 3 definitions on this one. So yay, no synonyms. Sociable is one definition. Fond of company is the second definition. And then fond of others is our third definition. So gregarious people are usually outgoing. So maybe you can think of an example of someone you know, or maybe you can think of an example of a character or a celebrity or somebody like that, that you would describe as sociable and fond of company or fond of others. Gregarious is an adjective and its connotation is positive. Generally, gregarious people are quite bubbly and fun to be around. Next, rebuttal. Huh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? feel like maybe that word would have fit in last week as well, wouldn't it have? So rebuttal is a return argument to something just said. So last week we were talking about arguments, and we were talking about how you always have to acknowledge the other side, right? And so the counter argument or the counterclaim is that something just said in our definition, and then the rebuttal is the return. It's the yeah, but. Okay? So our definition for rebuttal is a return argument. Okay? A return argument. That's our one definition. 3 words, a return argument. That's our rebuttal definition. Part of speech for rebuttal is a noun, and it is neutral. It's something that we need in an argument, right? So think of an example to go along with that, which brings us to our 10th word, effervescent. Effervescent means bubbly and lively. Seems like it's a little similar to gregarious, so maybe we might have to look out for that. Maybe we might have to be careful to make sure that we don't mix up those 2 words. So effervescent means bubbly or lively. So like maybe this will help you if you think of effervescent as kind of applying to your soda, right? Something, it's bubbly, right? So effervescent, right, is something that has bubbles. So like your Sprite or whatever it is that you drink. I always think of Sprite because I can see the bubbles in it really clearly, right? Like that wouldn't really apply to Mountain Dew because it doesn't have a whole lot of carbonation in it, so you probably don't see the effervescence in like a Mountain Dew, but you do in a Sprite or a 7-Up or something along those lines. So that's what I always think of when I think of effervescent. Even if I'm talking about a person, I always think of them like bubbling up, like when you open a bottle of Sprite or 7-Up that's been dropped or whatever, right? It just effervesces, it just bubbles up, and bubbly, lively people are kind of that way too. So hopefully that'll help you a little bit. So effervescent is an adjective. It's a way we describe people or sodas, as the case may be. And that connotation is generally positive. We like that idea of that bubbliness and that liveliness. So think of an example. Maybe it's a soda, maybe it's a person that you would describe as effervescent. All right, that brings us to our bonus words. Emulate is the first one. Emulate. It means to strive to equal or surpass. So we're going to do 2 definitions there. We're going to do strive to equal and then strive to surpass. So if you're emulating someone, you're trying to be like them, or maybe even be like them but a little bit better. Okay, so that definition starts with 2. We're eliminating the 2 so that we fit in our 3 words per box rule, but that is a verb. And the connotation is neutral. That brings us to, so your example there might be somebody that you emulate or someone that you think you ought to emulate. So that'd be a good idea for an example. And then finally, we have vacillate. Vacillate means to go back and forth. So back and forth, back and forth. So I automatically think of like a fan, right? That goes back and forth and back and forth. It vacillates. Part of speech for vacillate is a verb, right? Something that you do. It's an action. And then finally, the connotation for vacillate is neutral. So think of an example of something that vacillates, and it could even be, you know, like a person who goes back and forth when trying to make a decision. Or maybe it's a decision that you've had to make that you have vacillated on. Okay, so something along those lines is what you're thinking about for your definition there. All right, so that gets us through our vocabulary list for this week. So concept circles, again, I'm hoping they're a little bit easier for you this week and a little less time consuming. I've already put those terms in. If you grab the CC24, I've already got those vocab words in there for you. And then you don't have to do a separate text box for every label, right? Just add the label into your definition or your synonym or your example. I don't want you spending an hour doing concept circles. That should never happen. Okay, so I know we can't go back in time and take care of the other ones, but for this one, that's all you have to do. Okay. All right. So the other thing I would love for you to work on this week is your Reading Plus. Again, over this weekend, I had people emailing me saying, "Hey, I'm on hold," and I'm going, "Well, you just lost tons of time because I'm not sitting right next to my computer during the weekend. I am during the week." So let's be smart about this, okay? During the week is a good time to be working on this, not Sunday night at 9 o'clock, okay? So I did kind of want to go over just a little bit. I know that this video lesson is long already, but I did kind of want to go over how your Reading Plus grade is calculated, because there seems to be some confusion about it. And it's been the way that it is right now is the way it's been all year long, and it's the way it'll be all year next year too, because this is how Mrs. Jubai does scores for Reading Plus as well. So it is not just a completion grade, it is a performance grade. So it's out of 20 points, and what we do is we take your percentage, whatever percentage that you averaged for your Reading Plus that week, we take that percentage and we convert it on a 20-point scale. So for most scores, there's a 3 percentage point range that goes to each half point. So for instance, if you have an average of 74, 75, or 76 on your Reading Plus, that means you get a 15 out of 20. Okay? If you are in that range of percentages, then you get a 15 out of 20. The average for a 77 or 78 is a 15.5 out of 20. The score for an average of 79 to 81 is 16 out of 20. Okay, so, and that's the way it's been all year long. It is to some degree based on completion, but most of your grade is based on performance. So it's not enough to just go through and say, oh, well, I got 4 stories done, got 100, because you didn't. Okay, I'm taking that percentage that you got as an average and I'm converting that on a 20-point scale, and that's your grade. So don't be fooled into thinking that if you got it done, you get 20 out of 20, because you don't. Okay, and then also completion is still important, because if you didn't complete the assignment, I take off 10% for every part you didn't complete. So if you're like, well, I got 3 stories done and I've got a 90%, good enough. Well, no, now you've got an 80%, which is a 16 instead of an 18 out of 20. All right, so it's important that you work on this, because again, Reading Plus is half of your homework grade right now. Okay, half of your homework grade. So you probably want to make sure that you are doing a good job. All right, so to recap, we've got Concept Circles 24 due by midnight tonight. We've got Reading Plus due by Sunday at midnight that we need to do our best work on. And then finally, as always, read a few pages. I'll see you again tomorrow. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Canvas, email me, or drop by on Zoom during my office hours from 10 to 11 a.m. or 1 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. Have a great day.